Hey, YouTube, I'm back as I promised. You're getting sick of this, I know. So, let's talk about death. We all do it. We all know what it's about. It's terrifying. Oh, wait, no, never mind. I'm talking about the band. Death from Florida, Tampa, Florida. And I know that if you're watching this channel, you guys all have probably all these recordings, and you probably know a hell of a lot more about this band than I do. But I kind of wanted to make my first real music specific video about one of my absolute favorite death metal bands, and that would be Death. I've thought about this for a couple days, and where I learned of or how I learned of Death, I still don't entirely know. Where I think I first heard of Death would have been in the mid 90s, probably 93, 94 maybe, when I started, well actually maybe even a little before that. I in the late 80s I started collecting Kerrang, which most of you are probably familiar with, is a UK publication that was, and still is, I believe, although the latest issues I've seen of them, they kind of, it's not a magazine for me any longer, but in the late 80s and 90s into the 2000s, it was a kick-ass magazine. And it was, the thing that was great about it was that they mixed all types of genres, from the new album stuff to early first wave black metal and death metal, progressive metal, progressive rock. I mean, it was a magazine that you could read about Motley Crue and Bathory in, and that was really, for a guy like me that was a music nut and a music nerd, that was, you know, it was fucking kick-ass. It was awesome. And but I was not a guy that got in on the death metal scene early on. Truth be told, you know, I was in the 70s, I was a Yes, Beatles, Bad Company, Led Zeppelin, Rush, Kiss kind of guy. Those were my jams. Those were my bands. And by the time I got to the 80s, when I was a teenager and then in high school in the early 80s, I went to high school from 1980 through 1984. You know, it was all 80s music. It was Bauhaus, Depeche Mode, The Cure, even though some of those bands had been around in the very late 70s. But, you know, I was into, you know, a lot of, like, album-oriented rock, too, like Steely Dan and, you know, Hendrix and Simon and Garfunkel and, you know, any number of bands, Journey, and the stuff that you could hear on the radio in the 70s and early 80s, that was all stuff I loved and still do to this day. So when I first started reading about death metal, or black metal, death metal, it was probably about Venom, which I never gravitated to, and I don't own any Venom. I know that's probably not appropriate, and I may end up fixing that someday, but every time I've tried to listen to Venom, I've just never really dug them very much. I understand their importance to the scene, I understand their importance to death metal, but it just never really interested me much. But I do recall very, very, very distinctly reading about Bathory and Korthung and the very early Bathory recordings and the very early Slayer recordings like Show No Mercy and you know, Hell Awaits and stuff like that. And I recall trying to get into that stuff, but the truth of the matter was I was a hair metal dude. I was a Bon Jovi, Motley Crue, Rat, Striper. You know, that was the shit I was listening to in the early to mid 80s. And even into the late 80s, I stuck with a lot of those bands for the most part. You know, it was classic rock, and then it was 80s rock, and it was 80s music, which is a whole nother topic we'll get into some other time. But I was aware of bands like Death, but I didn't really know much about them. I tried to listen to the music, and I just couldn't get it initially. I could not get it. And it really took until about 99, 2000, after I went through my grunge phase, for me to start to kind of realize, oh shit, I missed out on something here. I need to go back and I need to reevaluate what it is that I don't like about or didn't think I liked about bands like Death, Celtic Frost, Deicide, all those type bands, which I was aware of. I was very much aware of them, particularly because of my reading, Kerrang magazine. I believe I got my first Death CD, which would have been Human, this one here, and I probably got that in 99 or 2000, because I became aware of Opeth in 2000-ish, 99, 2000-ish, and through friendship with a guy in a band called Porcupine Tree, which I've mentioned in other videos, I became kind of pretty decent friends with Steven Wilson, and he used to recommend all these different kind of bands to me, and Opeth was one that he recommended to me, and Opeth was honestly my gateway drug into death metal, and going back into old school death metal, and going forward into death metal and black metal and experimental stuff. That was, Opeth were my band, and we're going to do an episode just on them, but Death was probably right in that zone of bands that I was rediscovering, that I knew about but didn't really have any real familiarity with their music. Death was probably 1A, or it was probably 1A or 2 on that list. So I remember getting Human. That was the first one, which I'm glad I started there, because I'm not sure if I would have gone with Leprosy or Scream Bloody Gore if I would have stuck with the death metal thing. But anyways, this is it looks to be a Relativity press. It says 91 on it, so it's I don't think this one's an original. It's probably a repress. And but this was the first Death that I got into, and you probably all have this, but I'm just showing it to you anyways, because that's what you do on these videos. But I remember putting this on and being like, whoa, okay. The vocals were the thing that I always struggled with. The music I was totally down with. I loved extreme music from the beginning, but the vocals were the thing that I just always had a problem with. But Death and Chuck and Mike Ackerfeld from Opeth, frankly, were the two guys that made me go, yeah, I can do this. I could definitely do this. I dig this stuff. I got to acclimate to it a little bit, but once I got into it, I listen to more death metal now than I do normal vocal bands, to be completely transparent. So I don't recall which album I got next. Doesn't really matter. So we'll just kind of go through these. This looks to be an original press, but it's really interesting. And looking at it on Discogs, and again, I'm not one of these guys that's like putting my whole collection on Discogs. It's just too much work for me. I don't really give a fuck. I'm not gonna sell any of this shit unless I become on the verge of homelessness or something like that, which could happen soon. But anyways, looking this up on Discogs, if you look at it, it's got, just making sure I see that right, 12 tracks. However, on the back, it's got 10 tracks. Looking at the matrix numbers and all that stuff, everything matches up. All the the barcode numbers match up. Everything looks like it's an official OG copy. But then when you look at the artwork, and if anyone has this one from Combat, let me know in the comments, please, because I'd really like to ascertain whether this is legit or not. But if you look the lyrics, you can't even read them. Again, only 10 song titles when the CD is pressed with 12. And then this does have the original artwork with the what's his name, John Hand rhythm guitar, who never played on this album one note. So that leads me to believe it's probably right. But again, the color and the photos look pretty legit, and the artwork looks pretty legit. But the printing on it does not look legit. It almost looks bootleggy. So if anyone has any info on this, I'd really appreciate it, because I'm looking at this in Discogs, and an OG press of this, disc-wise, CD-wise, is going for $75, which is like, what? Are you fucking kidding me? Along that same lines, another combat press that I believe this one, all the run out matrix numbers, barcode numbers, everything lines up. It's got the, and this one has the proper amount of tracks and all that kind of stuff on it. And the artwork on this one looks fine. I mean, the pictures look clear and printing looks good. Probably my favorite Ed Repka artwork, by the way. Probably everyone's, actually. And this stuff, this is kind of cool. The detail for the Death P.O. box and their Death merchandise down here in the bottom here. I'm assuming this is legit, and this one's going for $40-50, which is crazy. Again, I don't remember when I got these. I want to say I didn't get these until early 2000s, which means there was probably a lot of these pressed out there. Why they're so difficult to come by now, allegedly, I don't know. I'm not really in the market to sell them, but it would be cool to kind of know. So if any of you guys have any of these early two, in fact, I'd be interested to know if you have the similar copies. Symbolic. This is the Roadrunner reissue from, this one I know is legit because I got it when it came out. 2008, it was reissued by Roadrunner. It's the one album in their catalog that is on Roadrunner. To my knowledge, it's the only one that Relapse doesn't have the rights to reissue, which sucks. Because when we get to my reissues in here, man, I would love to have a Roadrunner reissue of this. Fucking amazing album. Probably number 2 on my list. Human's my favorite. Leprosy and Symbolic are 1 and 2. And a nice booklet in this one, and it's got the write-ups with Gene Hoglan in here and Don Kay and all that stuff like that. And yeah, this is totally legit, and that is super sad, and I know everybody out there that's watching this feels that way about this, because this guy he was quirky and he had some character flaws like we all do, but he was a fucking genius. And in my opinion, he revolutionized death metal completely, which we'll get into that discussion in one moment here, about who came first, Possessed with 7 Churches or Death with Scream Bloody Gore. I feel it's Scream Bloody Gore. I just feel that it is. I love Possessed 7 Churches, but in my opinion, 7 Churches is much more of a thrash album. Yeah, true, Jeff Becerra was probably the first death metal guy, vocalist-wise, but you could argue that Hellhammer and Tom G were doing it before him, certainly Bathory, but I mean, there's a lot of gray area in between who came first, but I truly believe that Death Scream Bloody Gore was the number 1, the numero uno, first death metal release, death metal as we know it. Later recordings, I have the Relativity, Individual Thought Patterns. Yeah, Relativity from '93. I think these are all OGs. I'm pretty sure they are, because even though I didn't get them in the 90s, I got them in the early 2000s, and I gotta believe they were, this stuff wasn't as traded and sought after on eBay. We didn't really have eBay back until the early 2000s, mid 2000s, whenever that started. So this stuff was sitting in dead stock, or was sitting in, I mean, these probably were sitting in my local FYE for dozens of years, for all I know. But this has to be, these have to be legit. And then the last one was, I got this one at a place down in Towson, Maryland. It was Record and Tape Traders. My buddy John, if he watches this, is going to correct me. I can't remember the name. The place is no longer there, but I don't think it's there anymore. I think they went out of business. Kick-ass CD store. This is the reissue from Nuclear Blast 2005 for Sound of Perseverance. This one was brand new off the shelf when I got it 15 years ago, whenever it was. Or I'm sorry, not 15 years ago, 2005. Yeah, it probably would have been about, 15 years ago I bought it. I was on the way to DC to see a concert. Might have been Rush down in Bristow, Virginia, I think. 2005, I think, I'm not sure. This one has a DVD with it, and you know, as Death albums goes, this is probably number 3 on my list, even though it was actually supposed to be a Controlled Denied album initially, which you can hear that because it's very proggy. It's live in Cottbus. I've watched this. It's as close as I'll ever get to seeing Death live because I fucked that up, as I mentioned in my 10 questions video. Death is probably the one band that if I could go back in time and see live, they would be the band I would see. So those are the albums I have on CD. Notice I don't have Spiritual Healing in an old pressing. I just missed that one. But then we come to the reissue campaign that Relapse started, I believe. Was it with this one? I should know this stuff, and I apologize for not fully researching it, but I'm pretty sure this was the first one that came out. It was either this one. Yeah, I think they kind of went backwards. So I believe it was this one here. When I saw these go up on Relapse's page back in 2009, 10, you know, I was like, I'm all over this. And these are the, of course they did all the vinyl, and they did special box sets, which I kick myself in the ass for not buying now, because those are gorgeous and shit. They're going for stupid money, like $500-600. Although there's tons and tons and tons of Relapse reissued Death vinyl, I would have liked to have been on that first run. Specifically those box sets that they did for the vinyl with the slip mats and posters and the, you know, all the swag. That's my jam, and I just wasn't into vinyl at that point in time, and I really could kick myself in the ass for that. But I got in on all of these, with the exception of one, which I'll talk about in one sec here. Sound of Perseverance. You know, this is progressive death metal at its apex, man. It just does not, in my opinion, get much better. Yeah, there's a lot of killer technical death metals bands out there. You know, Pestilence, Cynic, you know, any number of Nocturnus. I mean, there's a ton of technical bands out there that do death metal, but I just think Chuck was on a different level. He was progressive and technical, and still extremely melodic. And you know, songs like Scavenger of Human Sorrow, Spirit Crusher, Voice of the Soul, and To Forgive is to Suffer are just, you know, they're fucking epic tracks, man. I mean, if you love death metal and you're a musician, like I kind of pretend I am, you really can't top this stuff. It's that fucking good. These are the 3 CD versions. They were limited to 2,000. Hopefully you can see that there. There's the serialized number. I'm sure they've been booted by then, but I know I got this from right from all of them, from with the exception of one I got from Relapse when they went on sale. Got them with bundles, as I mentioned in my t-shirt video. This is $5.59 out of 2,000. This comes with 1998 demos with no bass on it. They've got several demos from '98 that were, you know, working renditions for the other guys, DiGiorgio, Richard Christie, forget the other, was it Bobby Cogley on this one playing? Actually, this one doesn't have DiGiorgio, my bad. This one has Scott Clendenin, he's a killer bass player. I mixed up DiGiorgio with him, but you also had Shannon Hamm on guitars. I mean, that was the thing with Chuck, man. That guy just surrounded. It was tough with him because he never really had a solidified, constant lineup. But what he did do was he got the best players in death metal, and particularly in Florida scene, to play on his records, and it shows because they're massive, they're epic, they're just so good. Okay, so that was the first one I got. I'm pretty sure this would have been the next one, because I'm almost 100% sure they went backwards with these. This one was, again, from Relapse, Perseverance, number 948 out of 2000. This one has one of my favorite tracks on here, The Philosopher, and Inhuman Form, Nothing is Everything, Individual Thought Patterns, man. I mean, this is just so fucking good. It's also got a cool little studio outtake with The Exorcist that they do in the studio. This one has a live in Germany, April 13th, 1993, live show on it. And it also has 4-track demos that Chuck and Gene did in December '92, and also some riff tapes from 1992 with Inhuman Form, The Philosopher, and Trapped in the Corner on them. A lot of people, when they get these kind of things, are like, that's throwaway stuff. It's just a way to make you buy additional copies and stuff. And that's true. I mean, I fell for it. I definitely am a sucker for that kind of stuff. But I kind of like listening to demos and outtakes, alternate versions. I'm really big on that because I like a lot of jazz, and like my Miles Davis box sets have fucking tons of outtakes. Sometimes they're just 1 or 2 minutes of a track or an arrangement change or something like that. And I love hearing how an original demo or an original, like in this case, an original riff tape might have evolved into a fully fledged track, and that's just great stuff. So again, these are 3 CD digipacks. I'm not crazy about digipacks because they end up getting fucked up and damaged real easily, but to keep the cost down, I guess that's why they did it that way. And the packaging on these is superlative. Relapse and Perseverance Holdings did a great job. I'm not going to thumb through everything in these booklets, but they're 12 or 15 page booklets with great photos in them, thick stock, really nice, well done stuff, and all of them have notes and anecdotes from, like, for example, in Individual Thought Patterns, there's Perry Grayson, who I believe was an engineer on here, and what do we got here? I think this is from Gene Hoglan. So this is 2011, so that's almost 10 years out already that these have come out. As far as I know, these are long sold out, and they're tough to locate for reasonable money. I bought mine all at retail, except one, and we'll get to that in a sec. Pretty sure this one was next. If I'm out of sequence on these, I apologize. What's also really cool about these is starting with with spiritual, and going forward, the last 4, these are all embossed. The logo's embossed, and the actual artwork is embossed. As I said, this is probably my least favorite artwork for Death albums, although Individual is not that great either. But I mean, this cartoony Repka thing, it's not for me. Spiritual Healing was the real album, that was like the transition album. They went from being a pure old school death metal kind of band that I think still was technical and progressive even on their first 2 albums, over and above a lot of the other death metal that we'll get into or that you're into. Death was always a little cut above musicianship wise. This one is probably my least favorite Death album, although I love them all. Again, now they have a vertical serialization as opposed to horizontal, but number 568 out of 2000. And as I said, I'm pretty sure all these were sold out literally within the first week or 2 of being issued, at least in the first month. I know that. Again, we're talking 3 CDs. This one has killer artwork on the actual discs. Sorry that they're upside down. I'm not going to fix them. Another great booklet in here with anecdotes from guys that played on the album. This one has unearthed pre-human rehearsals with rehearsal tracks from Suicide Machine, Together as One, See Through Dreams. Disc 3, they've got a live show from New Rochelle, New Jersey from 1990. They've got some joke and jam tracks on here, some studio instrumentals from this album, and then the rehearsals, and of course the remastered audio. This album is killer, but again, it's probably my least favorite, and that's saying something because it's a cut above most death metal albums. Okay, Human, my favorite Death album. What can you say? Paul Masvidal, Sean Reinert, and I always have to look the fucking bass players up for these albums because this one has DiGiorgio on it, I believe. Yeah, Steve DiGiorgio. How can you get 4 better players than that? You cannot get 4 better musicians on an album than Paul Masvidal, Chuck Schuldiner, Steve DiGiorgio, and Sean Reiner. Just not gonna happen. Awesome fucking artwork. Probably my favorite. And we didn't get to that shirt yet, but that's coming because I have a Death shirt that I wear all the time. Again, tons of cool anecdotes, and one of my favorite tracks on here is a bonus track of them doing God of Thunder, the Kiss song, which is really kick-ass. There's tons of basic instrumental studio tracks. There's some demos from March of 91. There's rehearsal tracks from January of 91. Some are just riffs, some are complete takes. There's drum and bass tracks and some other rehearsals from 90, August of 90, so kick-ass there. We're almost there. This is the only one I did not buy from Relapse when it was issued, and by the time I became aware of it, I was going through a lot at that point in time with my ex-fiance. I missed out on it, and this is the only one I bought online. I bought it on eBay. I paid $60 for this, which is a shitload for me to spend on a CD, but it was worth every penny of it because this is my second or third favorite Death album, and again, embossed artwork, so cool. I don't know if you can see it or not. And my favorite replica. Again, 3 CDs, each one with different renderings of the artwork on the CDs. Cool looking, and this one has Live at the Dirt Club in Jersey in '88. It's also got another live set from Rochester, New York from December of '88. Looks like they recorded a bunch of those shows in that tour. A buddy of mine was at one of these shows, lucky bastard. It's also got the rehearsals from '87 in September and December of '87. How can you go wrong with this album, man? Leprosy itself, Born Dead, Forgotten Past, Pull the Plug. Why don't you pull the plug? That's terrible, I know. Just awful. I was never a death metal singer, never will be. And Choke on It, man. I mean, just fucking classic. And last but not least, the last one they issued, which came out in, I think, 17 now. Again, embossed artwork, number 1189 of 2000. Bought 2 of these actually, and I'm not gonna lie to you, I turned one. I think I sold it for $50, so I bought it for $35 and sold it for maybe $15 more, just because I was holding on to it. I probably could have got a lot more, but a dude contacted me about it that I knew, and he's like, "Man, will you give it up?" And I'm like, "You know what? I wish somebody would have done that for me." And I sold it to him for a modest profit. Probably my third or fourth favorite Death album. It's stunning to believe that Chuck was 19 when he did this, and Chris Reifert was 17. Great essay in here about Chris's experience with Chuck working on this album, and again, to me, this is the very first death metal album. Just doesn't get any better than this. I love Possessed, Seven Churches, but I just think this is the shit. You can leave me your opinion and let me know what you think. That's cool, no problem. But yeah, Death, Scream Bloody Gore, a true classic. So that's my Death collection, no vinyl. As I said, I would love to have those vinyl box sets, but there's no way I'm dropping several $100s on those at this point. Not worth it to me to have them. I feel kind of lucky that I have what looks like a couple of OG presses and and the original Combat CDs, and that's good enough for me. I probably, I think if somebody came at me with the right amount of money for these, I might think about unloading these, just because things are a little bit tight for me right now, and my health is kind of weird, and I wouldn't mind some extra cash. But frankly, I probably wouldn't. Who needs 2 copies of the same CD? I don't know. I guess I do. Weirdos like me. So, put my hat on so that my hair wasn't in my face, because I was getting sick of doing this. I apologize for that. But Tennessee Titans, fucking hate this team. It's my favorite team, but I hate them because they always lose. They're probably going to lose to the Colts tomorrow. But hopefully I can look back on this video later tomorrow and they didn't lose and we'll take over first place and I'll be a happy camper. Anyway, you guys take it easy. Drop me some comments. Drop me some comments. Anything. You want to tell me I'm a fucking loser and my videos suck? By all means, go for it. That's cool. I'm good with that. Death, one of my very favorite bands. Upcoming, I'm going to drop some box set mania on you. But it's probably not going to be metal. Well, one of them's going to be metal. Judas Priest, for sure, is metal. They're the metal gods, in fact. And I might do a Blue Oyster Cult box set run through as well. Just a disclaimer, I'm not a metal historian, and I'm kind of lazy about looking facts up, and I apologize. I don't think anything I told you here was not true or out of line. May have had some dates a little bit mixed up. I'm not a big label-ophile either, so I don't get off on the whole, it's on this label, it's Black Mark, so it's, that kind of shit doesn't mean a whole lot to me. I'm in it for the music, as I think most of you guys are too, and I'm just showing off my shit, and if you dig it, cool. Leave me some comments. I appreciate you guys checking in. We'll catch you later.